Well, I turned my painting upside down so that I can get the hairs in just right. Don't be afraid to change the angle of your painting so that it's best for your hand. So I'm starting to add all the hairs, the light hairs, to my wolf, and I'm going to do one side of his face at a time. That works best for me for this particular painting. So I'm using 299 light gray, and I'm adding the hairs to my wolf. In between the light gray hairs, I'm going to use my black to add some additional black hairs and give some variety to the texture of the fur. This is a long process, so bear with me. I'm going to let it play out in real time so that you can see how slow I go when I'm doing this. It really makes a difference if you take your time and do it right. I'm being very careful to follow the direction that the fur grows. Very, very important. I can't say it enough. I decided to speed this up just a little bit while I add these black hairs to the wolf's face before we go on to some lighter hairs. Now I'm back to the 299 light gray, adding in some light hairs in between the black ones that I just put in. Remember that the hairs are varied. They are not all lined up in a row, not evenly spaced. They're random. Now I'm using my 211 white to make a few brighter hairs. And when I don't think I have it just right, I can add my black charcoal pencil to even things out. And this is a 299 gray. As I mentioned before, I have 2 or 3 different ones sharpened at all times, so I can just grab one and I don't have to stop and sharpen it. I'm adding little light gray hairs. I'm getting to the edge of the face now. I'm putting them in singly. Now switching to the white. And adding some longer hairs to the side of the face. Now I'm using my light gray Carbothellos 700 pencil to add a few hairs. It works very nice. Putting some black ones in. black as we get closer to the top of the head. Getting a little more careful with my strokes now as it joins the ears. And out into the outer area of the wolf's face. So now I'm going to switch back to my 299 gray NuPastel and add in those light color hairs. So I keep switching back and forth between the black, the NuPastel 299 gray, and the NuPastel 211 white. And occasionally using my Carbothello pencil. I'm also using my white charcoal pencil to put in a few little bright white hairs up near the top of the head. As you can see, I'm making those shorter and closer together as they approach the ear, because they border on the ear, and we want it to show that way when I turn it the other way around. And then I'm using my black charcoal pencil to work the white hairs into the main area of the wolf's head. So this is the 211 NuPastel. Adding some brighter hairs in that area where I just used the white charcoal pencil. Now I'm working on the outside edges of the wolf's face where the hairs get longer. They're very beautiful. Using the white 211 and the black 229 and the 700 Carbothello pencil. Darkening around the eye. With the 229. So I'm making little adjustments to my painting, deciding what it needs more of and trying to add those things. I'm using the white charcoal pencil now. Well, I've turned my painting right side up, and I'm going to work on this fur on the wolf's back. So I'm using my 411.3 Rembrandt Burnt Sienna to add some more color on the wolf's back and under his chin. And I'm using the darker Mars Violet 538.3 to darken that area. Push it further back. We'll do this before we add any hair to this area. And now I'm using a 704.3 dark gray to add some darker color to the neck and under the chin. I have another one that I'm going to use that's on its side. It's already been sanded and wiped off. I have a couple of these, so I can use this one on its side to push that color in and cover a little more area. I'm going to go over this area with another layer of brown, 411.3, and push that into the paper. I'm going to add a little bit, even up this edge a little bit with my charcoal pencil, and add brighter color with the 700 light gray. Remember, we used a light gray new pastel in that area when we were painting the eyes, so I can use my pencil to perk those up just a little bit more. Now I'm putting some base coat in, our 707.7, covering the raw paper with that first layer of gray. We had not done that before. See that little boo-boo? Now I'm going to spray that with my camera blower and get the excess off so we can cover it up when we do the background. So I'm continuing to layer that 707.7 Rembrandt medium gray color all over the background behind the wolf. I'm going to work mainly on this left side and cover up the right side with my glassine paper, and we'll do that at a later time. Since I'm right-handed, I usually work from left to right. If you're left-handed, you might want to work in the other direction, from right to left. But this works best for me and keeps my hand out of the finished areas of my painting. I've decided to add the 707.7 Rembrandt to the right side as well. That way I get it all done at one time. And then I'll cover it with my glassine paper and work on each section at a time. I'm going to work on the background now by adding a layer of 411.5 burnt sienna. This is a brighter color than the brown we used on the wolf. It's the same color family as the brown, but it is the 0.5 instead of the 0.3. With Rembrandts, that means that any color number with a 0.5 is the true hue, and so that's what the 411.5 is. And now I'm blending that in with some 231.5 or gold ochre. And that just looks beautiful, very pretty. And now I'm using the 411.3 to darken the color somewhat. So we're going to use a variety of colors and mixtures to create this background, which will have a fall look to it when we're done. I've moved down the painting a bit so you can see what I'm doing. I'm putting that 411.3 up towards the top of the painting. It's going to take several layers before it gets smooth. Now I'm using the 231.5 over top of that to help blend it together. So I go back and forth between the mixtures to get a nice even layer in the background. And this is the 411.3. Working in the lower half of the painting now. This is the 411.3 that we were using before. This is actually the back of the wolf, and it will merge into the background, but we're going to color that with a dark brown at the moment before we add hair. So I'm cross-hatching a nice even layer. And now I'm adding the 538.3 Mars Violet to take it darker. And it also is a grayer shade than what we were using above. I'm adding a bit more gray now to even things out with the 707.7 Rembrandt, also down at the bottom of the painting. More 411.3 at the top. And blending that in to the bottom of the picture as well. Using gray on top of it, that helps to blend the colors together. And now 411.5. So it's a buildup of layers that produces a nice even coat. And this is dark gray, 704.3, darkening the wolf's back into the background. And that also, what we're going to do is fade things out by making the corners darker. It keeps the eye of the viewer from leaving the picture. We can focus the viewer to look at our wolf instead of its eye traveling out to lighter areas in the corners of the painting. Now we're going back to work on the fur, and I have a 276 buff, and I'm going to continue to add hair behind the wolf's ear. And now that I have a background established, I can pull those hairs into the background. So we needed to put the background in before we could add more hair. This way we can finish the hair on the wolf's ears and also the back of his neck. Now, when I'm doing this, sometimes I want them to look, the hairs to look fluffier or brighter. and I'll zigzag a few strokes together to get that. Now I've switched to the 299 light gray instead of the cream, and I'm carefully adding single hairs on the side of the wolf's face. Here I'm using my cordovan to add some darker brown in between some of these hairs. I can use the sharp edge instead of the tip, which works really nice. I think using pastel is so similar to oil painting. We put in the base coats, we block it in, and then we add the lighter hairs on top. And I can use my pastel to add back in darker hairs as I need to. So I'm using my 299 light gray. I like to vary the color as well. We want to use different colors back and forth between the cream and the gray. I'm using the corner of the 299 gray to draw these beautiful curving hairs. I love the winter coat on a wolf. It's so thick and luxurious, and we have these beautiful hairs. This particular wolf is a yearling. He's just a year old, and his ears are still a little big for his body. He's growing into them. I'm using my black charcoal pencil to draw the black. There are some black hairs that come up from the neck of the wolf behind his head, and they go in all kinds of directions. So I can use my pencil to draw those in. I'm also going to use my pencil to add the little short black hairs that grow on the top of the ear. We couldn't add those before until we got our background in. I'm adding more fur with the 276 buff and using the corner to draw the curvier hairs. And then if I need darker hairs, I'm using my Cordovan 353 NuPastel to add in the darker hairs with the sharp flat edge. As you can see, that works really well to do that. And if I need to go darker, I can use my 229 black. Switching back now to the 211 white to add some brighter hairs. So just take your time, be patient. If you need a break, stop and take a break, get away from it a little bit, and then come back and keep adding those terrific looking hairs. I'm using the 263 Indian Red now to add some red-brown color. So we're basically using the same colors over and over again. The 299 light gray, the 211 white, the 229 black, 353 cordovan, and 263 Indian Red, with some occasional help from our charcoal pencil. The more you practice doing hair, the better you will get at it, and the finer your strokes will be. And you also will find that you don't get too much pastel on your paper. I think he's really looking handsome. And that's the 299 light gray that I'm using now. Adding some brighter white right there on the side of the face. And a little dark brown. I've decided to add some lighter brown hairs with 253 Cocoa Brown. It's a lovely brown color and works well here. I'm going to try another brown here, which is 313 NuPastel. It is a little brighter, has a little more yellow in it. I'm going to see if I like it. I don't know if I'm going to continue to use it or not. So far, it looks pretty good. Better substitute might be 233 raw sienna. But we want to have a variety of color here. So now I'm back to my 211 NuPastel white, adding some more white hairs. Now, as I'm coming up to the muzzle of the wolf's face, I don't want the hairs to be so distinct. So I'm not really sharpening my pastel quite as much. I'm letting the white blend together to be more solid in appearance. Now I've picked up my other 211 NuPastel that has a point on it so that I can draw around the corner of the mouth as you saw me do earlier. And now I'm putting in that mouth a little darker with my charcoal pencil. And now darkening it with the cordovan on the bottom side. It's more of a dark brown color. I want to make sure I can find it. Now I'm going underneath the chin, but I want to be able to find that mouth. It's very critical, the shape, to the look of the wolf's face. So this is 276, adding more hair to the wolf's face. I'm using my 105 ivory pencil to add some single hairs there on the edge of the face. Now I'm adding some darker black lines with my charcoal pencil, going into the white area. I'm going to do the same with the white charcoal pencil, except I'll be adding white hairs. Now I'm using my 704.3 dark gray Rembrandt to add some dark gray to the nose of the wolf. So I'm using it on its end. Adding a little underneath the nose on the top lip of the wolf's mouth. Using my black NuPastel to add in the hair on the side of the nose on the right side so I can better define that area. I'm continuing to add the black hair around the right eye of the wolf, down into the side of his face. This is part of that mask that I've been telling you about, that black mask. Adding a few single hairs on the left side of his face. And darkening under the nose. Now I've gone back to my 263 Indian Red to add some brown color underneath the mouth. As you can see, I go back and forth between different colors and adjusting colors and values as I go, which is the way that I paint. I'm going to add some more background color now with the 411.3 Rembrandt, using it on its side, adding some dark brown to finish up the background area and the bottom of the wolf on the left side. So now I'm adding some more hairs with the 253 Cocoa Brown into that dark area that is the wolf's back. And I've switched now to the 276 Buff and just continuing to add hair. Painting a wolf is very labor intensive, but it's well worth the effort. I'm still using the 276. I've just picked up a different stick that has a sharp edge on it. I'm being very careful to add very fine hairs with light pressure. I know I keep telling you that over and over again, but it really is the truth. It's the secret. This is the 253 Cocoa Brown and my 105 Carbothello Pastel Pencil in Ivory. Isn't that pretty? Sometimes it's fun to just do something different. Every now and then I stop and evaluate my progress and decide where I need to add more hair. I'm adding some dark hairs now with the 6B charcoal pencil. And now I'm using the white. There's an area that I'm working on here that creates the shape of the mouth as it comes up the jaw, and I want to get that just right. So you saw me rub out those hairs. I didn't like the way that looked. So I'm going to shape it up a little better. So there's the corner of the mouth, and these are hairs coming down from the face over that corner. I'm putting some brown, dark red brown hairs in with the 263. Here I've gone back to adding white hairs on the side. This is looking very pretty. I'm just taking my time. Switching back here to the 276 to add a creamy tone to those hairs. Putting a few dark hairs in with the 353 Cordovan. I'm working back and forth between the 211 white and the 276 NuPastel and my white charcoal pencil to fill in these hairs that are on the side of the face and around the mouth. I'm bringing that as much as I can to completion. A little bit of 263 right there in the corner. You can see the structure of his face. So I'm using the 211 white and I'm making it a little bit brighter in that area. And I'm really letting my pastel get dull here because I don't want a lot of definition here. I want it to be mostly a solid white area. So now I'm going to turn it over and use it on the flat edge to just cross hatch some white smooth color in on the side of the muzzle of this wolf. And I'll blend that in with a few hairs so that we have a nice transition between the white and the shorter hairs on the muzzle. So I'm using the corner of the 211 and letting it get dull to blend that area in. Add a few little hairs, but not being real distinct. And in this area around the eye, the hair changes direction quite a bit, so you have to be mindful of those changes. So we're on the nose and the hair grows down or in a straight line anyway, either up or down the nose, but it curves around the muzzle. So I'm making sure that I get that direction in. And I'll use my charcoal pencil to help get those little dark hairs in that define that direction of hair growth. So now I'm using that flat edge of the 211 white pastel again to add color on the muzzle. I am using the edge of my pastel now, but it's gotten quite dull, so the lines are not as sharp as in other parts of the face. And the hairs are very short, so I'm putting them in. This is also the area that the whiskers will grow out of. And pulling little short hairs over the mouth. Continuing to work on those little hairs around the mouth. Now I'm using my 9B graphite pencil to add the little follicles where the whiskers will come out of. I'm placing them. The 9B pencil is very subtle. You can use it for shading, and it doesn't take up any tooth of the paper. So now I feel like it's too gray, so I'm going to add some white over that. And but I do have my whisker follicles in, as you can see. And put some little dark hairs in with the 6B charcoal. And some little tiny white hairs. Redefining that nose edge with my black NuPastel. We're getting down to the finish now, so we want all these details to be just perfect. Now I'm going to use this 9B again, which just works really well in so many areas when you paint, to blend in this area. I don't want to use the charcoal pencil, it would be too dark, but I can use the 9B graphite, and it's a slightly gray color. And I'll go back and add some brighter white hairs with my 211. I'm trying to get the angle of the fur just right, the way those hairs grow. Adding a little more white right at the top of the nose. Adding a few curly, beautiful hairs with my white charcoal pencil. It's one of the final things I do after I get all of the fur in, is to use the white pencil to add finishing touches. I'm going to continue to add a few more beautiful hairs with the white charcoal pencil. Be sure and join me for part 4, and we'll finish up this gorgeous wolf.